Hey guys, it's Brandon from Arabian Night Armory, and today I'm showing you a work in progress of Erza Scarlet's breastplate, or cuirass, whatever word you want to use for it. So I had to change a couple things, but the overall aesthetic is here. But I'm going to go over what needs to be done to get this project to where it needs to be. Number one, obviously, scrub the hell out of this rust. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrub it with a wire brush with some WD-40. I'm going to use a buffing wheel as like a final step. Another thing I'm going to do is even out and clean up these edges with some files. Just so that they're not as rough, and then blacken it. So the way I'm going to blacken this... Oh, one other thing is I'm going to take an angle grinder, because on the reference there's like ridges, channels on the inside. So I'm going to take an angle grinder, grind a straight line in the middle, grind a straight line down the middle, then blacken it. The way I'm going to blacken this is I'm going to use heat and acid. So selenious acid, acetic acid. There's a couple acids that are useful for armor, and then for heat you can use a propane torch, and that'll get this to a nice iridescent black finish, which is much better than paint because paint just rubs off. I hate blackening with paint. I never blacken with paint. Another thing that I need to do is clean up and polish this. Obviously, now this little belly plate that Erza Scarlet wears. It's kind of a weird shape. So it's got this fold down the middle, right? But then it also curls towards the looker, the viewer, right? And so when you curl towards the person who's looking at the armor, that kind of shaping is fighting against this fold away, right? So this folds away, but then it's supposed to curl towards. So I've got a little bit of that going on, and I can exaggerate it a little more to get it closer to the original reference. But what I'm concerned with is like it's putting a lot of strain on this, seam under the belt here to exaggerate it more than this. I can get it like 10% past this, and that should be fine. But to get it to the way it looks like on, like say the anime figure, the figurine, that's I'd have to use heat. I'd have to forge this. Using more heat on this piece, which would obviously increase the price, and I'm doing this as a budget armor, but I think with a propane torch, the propane torch should help this curl this way just a little bit more. One of the other concerns I have is, so you see how it comes to this point here? So what I'm a little bit worried about for the customer is if I curl it more than, say, 10% past the way it's curled now, this whole ridge here and this whole ridge here, every time she leans forward, this could start digging into her hip bones, and I don't want that. Obviously, I don't want my armor to be uncomfortable for the people who wear it. Obviously, one solution is that because this little belly plate thingy is separate from that upper breastplate, she could just take this off every time she sits down. That's perfectly fine. But that is a hassle. It's like, okay, I gotta take off my armor. Okay, I gotta put on my armor. It's like I don't know. I'll ask her about what she would prefer for how much curl, because like I said, that would be a concern. I don't want this to hurt her. Another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to mark about half an inch or a quarter inch, somewhere like half an inch in here, and I'm going to roll the edges. And so if you're curious what I mean by roll the edges, you see how this has got this nice rolled finish, and so what that does is it's smooth, it's rounded here, so I can, touch that. I'm not going to cut myself. And the other thing it does is it looks the armor look more professional, more finished. And the main reason that people do that for armor in general is it actually strengthens the armor. I don't imagine she's going to be sword fighting people, but that is a nice touch. And the edges here and up there and there and there, they are rolled on the original reference. So I'm going to roll that. That's also going to bring down the size because this is a little too big, but if I take off I roll half an inch off here, and half an inch here, and half an inch here, and half an inch here, and it's going to be proportioned a little closer. Another thing I'm going to show is, still a separate piece, but this drilling and like channel that I did, I had to add that to get the metal to curve this way against the fold that's going that way. And none of these are holes. Like, these are just divots. They aren't drilled all the way through. And so I definitely could grind out just a little bit more here and just a little bit more here. And the reason why I use these divots instead of just grinding a really deep channel is because I don't want the armor to be compromised in strength. And so using the divot method and then grinding just a little bit between each divot, that still keeps enough of the strength of the armor that it's definitely not going to break for LARPing, or for if she just like throws it in the back of her car or whatever. But it still lets me to curve it just a little bit. And again, using a propane torch to heat this, it's going to curve a little bit nicer for me. So yeah, that's the Erza Scarlet armor. One last thing I'll note is that on the original, there's only one strap on the rib cage, but I put two. The reason why I have an extra one is because if you only have this lower one, which is what's on the original, every time she leans over sideways, whether standing or sitting, you know, the opposite corner on the other side would start to dig into her ribs. And so that's why on any historical breastplate, you see multiple straps on the sides. You want to stabilize it on the rib so it doesn't dig in on one rib over the other every time you twist or lean a certain way. But yeah, I'm hoping now that it's 40 degrees today, and I think it's going to be warm for a couple days this month, I can get this done and then ship it out to her.